Is the old tailor coming back? And is Gabby ready for that? By Friday morning, I had been in a relationship with Gabrielle Delaney for exactly 2 weeks. This should have felt simple. It did not. Not because we were unhappy. Not because either of us had changed our minds. Not because there was any actual reason to doubt what was between us now. The problem was that new happiness has a particular way of making a woman careful. Especially when it arrives after you've had to fight for it. Especially when the woman in question has spent months pretending she was harder to wound than she is. Which is how I found myself standing in Gabi's kitchen at 7:20 on a Friday morning, drinking coffee out of one of her mismatched mugs and watching her move around in soft charcoal sleep pants and an olive t-shirt as though she had not quietly become the most stabilizing thing in my life. Her apartment still held the warmth of sleep. A window cracked open over the sink let in cool spring air and the faint sounds of the city waking below. There was toast on the counter. A pan on the stove. My blouse from the night before hanging over the back of a chair, looking like evidence. Gabi turned from the stove with a plate in one hand and narrowed her eyes slightly when she caught me watching. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "The one where you stare like you're about to make a decision for both of us." I smiled into my coffee. "That seems unfair." "It seems historically accurate." I set the mug down and leaned one hip against the counter. I was still wearing the dark jeans I'd pulled back on after too little sleep and one of Gabi's oversized gray sweaters because my own shirt had lost all claim to dignity sometime after midnight. She noticed the way I looked at her. Of course she did. Gabi noticed everything that mattered and half the things that didn't. "What?" she asked again, more softly this time. I let the pause sit for a second. Not to be dramatic. To enjoy it. Then I said, "Pack for 2 nights. Comfortable clothes. And for once, don't ask me where we're going." Gabi blinked. There are women who would have guessed. Smiled too fast. Asked 14 logistical questions while pretending not to be delighted. Gabrielle Delaney, thankfully, was not one of them. Instead, she set the plate down, folded her arms loosely, and looked at me like a woman assessing whether. 2 nights. Yes. On purpose. Very much so. Her mouth moved. Not quite a smile. More dangerous. The beginning of one. Today. We leave after work. Gabi tipped her head slightly. You planned a weekend. I arranged an escape. That sounds like branding. It sounds like I'm trying to do something nice for the woman I'm seeing. That landed. I could tell because she looked away for exactly 1 second before looking back at me. The thing about Gabi now was that she no longer hid her softness well around me. That was new. That was everything. She crossed the kitchen, stopped close enough to touch me, then reached up and tugged lightly at the collar of the sweater I was wearing. "That's mine," she said. "I'm aware. You're very comfortable in it. I'm adaptable." That earned me the full smile at last. "There she is," I murmured. Gabi's fingers stayed curled in the knit at my shoulder. "You're not going to tell me anything?" "No. Not even the state?" "Maybe." "Taylor." "Yes. Do I need hiking boots or just your usual level of patience?" I laughed. "Boots. And a jacket." Her eyes softened in that way that still caught me off guard every time. "Okay," she said. "Just like that." "Okay." No testing. No retreat. No new uncertainty for me to manage with charm and caution and sheer emotional stamina. Just a yes I didn't have to earn twice. That should not have moved me as much as it did. But it did. She must have seen something change in my face, because her expression did too. "What?" I shook my head once. "Nothing." "That's not true." "No," I admitted. "It's just new." Gabi studied me for a beat, then stepped in and kissed me once. Warm. Slow. No hurry in it. When she pulled back, her hand slid down to find mine. "I'll pack," she said. "You go be terrifying at work." Cruel. Efficient. By 6:15, the city had turned gold at the edges. I pulled up outside Gabi's building in the deep forest green Range Rover and cut the engine just as she came out the front door with a small leather weekender bag and a denim jacket folded over one arm. I should pause here and say that one of the great injustices in life is how attractive a woman can become simply by looking ready to leave the city with you. Gabi was in dark jeans, brown boots, a fitted charcoal Henley, and that same denim jacket. Hair loose. Minimal makeup. No performance. Just the woman herself, lit by the last soft hour of Friday like something the week had not earned. She slid into the passenger seat, set the bag in the back, and gave the dashboard a quick look. "You're driving yourself. That does happen occasionally. Should I be worried?" "I'd hope not." Gabi buckled in and looked at me amused. "No driver. No black town car. No emergency dinner reservation hidden in your phone. Would that disappoint you?" "It would tell me you missed the point." I started the engine and pulled us into traffic with the kind of calm that usually means I'm hiding something. To be fair, I was. The city fell away in layers. Traffic thickened, thinned, then finally loosened as we moved north. The sky darkened slowly above the Hudson, pale blue turning silver, then something softer, duskier. Music low. Windows up. Heat just warm enough. For the first 40 minutes, we talked about almost nothing, which, with Gabi, had become one of my favorite things. A museum donor who had accidentally insulted a sculptor. Mara's increasingly visible opinion of my emotional life. The fact that Naomi had texted me at 4:30 that afternoon. "If she comes back with a ring, I'm disowning you both." Gabi read the message off my screen when I handed her my phone at a stoplight and laughed so hard she had to press her hand to her mouth. She's unbelievable. She's invested. She's invasive. She considers those the same skill. We stopped once at a small roadside cafe just off the highway. Good coffee, terrible music, a glass case full of pastries trying too hard to be wholesome. Gabi came back to the car with 2 coffees and a paper bag. "What's that?" "You seemed fragile," she said, handing me a muffin. "That is an outrageous accusation. You looked at your email like it had insulted your mother. That narrows nothing." We drove the rest of the way into evening. When the signs for the estate finally appeared and the road narrowed into quiet tree-lined bends, Gabi straightened slightly in her seat and looked out through the windshield. The light was low by then. Blue in the sky. Warm gold in the windows ahead. Cedar Lake's estate opened around us in long stretches of still water, dark trees, stone paths, and warm-lit buildings that managed to look expensive without becoming cold about it. That mattered to me more than I had admitted. I pulled up outside our lodge and cut the engine. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then Gabi looked at me. "You did good." 3 words. Total effect. I got out, took both bags before she could argue, and led her up the short stone path toward the cottage. The place was all wood beams, thick blankets, soft lamplight, dark leather, pale rugs, and one large fireplace already lit in the sitting room. Beyond the windows, the lake held the last light like polished metal. Gabi stepped inside and went quiet. Not overwhelmed, just still. She moved farther in, taking it in the way she always takes in spaces that might matter, carefully, intelligently, as if beauty is something worth examining rather than merely consuming. "You like it?" I said. She turned slowly toward me. "Taylor." That tone again. The one she used only when I had hit something more vulnerable than vanity. "It's beautiful," she said. Relief can be a very private thing, even when you are fully dressed and holding luggage in a rented cottage. I set the bags down by the stairs. It felt like somewhere you could breathe. Gabi looked at me for 1 long second, then crossed the room and kissed me softly. Not hungry. Not teasing. Thank you in a language I already liked better than English. The first evening stayed exactly where it needed to. We showered, changed into softer clothes, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on the floor near the fireplace because neither of us had the patience to perform adulthood properly. I wore dark jeans and a cream long-sleeve shirt with the sleeves pushed up. Gabi had changed into black lounge pants and a muted plum sweater that made her look warmer somehow, more settled inside herself. The fire worked on her almost immediately. Or maybe it wasn't the fire. Maybe it was the fact that there was nowhere to go. No room to manage. No outside audience. No need for either of us to be impressive on schedule. We talked. Really talked. About stupid things at first. The worst hotel either of us had ever stayed in. The first car I wrecked at 17. The fact that Gabi hates scented candles with the conviction of a morally serious person. Then less stupid things. Her mother's quiet ability to see through people. My father's rare, disarming loyalty. The strange tenderness of learning someone's actual rhythms after the chase is over. At some point, she tucked her legs under herself on the couch. At some point, I stretched out beside her. At some point, my head ended up in her lap without strategy, because the drive had caught up with me and the fire was warm and her hand in my hair felt like the most convincing version of safety I had ever known. "You're tired," she murmured. "I'm relaxing aggressively." "That's not a thing." "It is if you're me." She laughed softly and kept her fingers moving against my hair. Slow, thoughtless, perfect. The fire snapped. Wind brushed the windows once. The room glowed. I don't remember closing my eyes. I do remember the last thing I heard before sleep took me. Gabi, very quietly saying, "You really did this for me." And me, already halfway gone, answering the truth. Yes. When I woke, it was still dim. The fire had burned down to embers. A blanket was over both of us. My cheek was against Gabi's shoulder now, her hand still resting low against my arm as if she had decided at some point in the night not to move and had simply stayed that way until morning. I looked up. She was awake. "Good morning," she said softly. "I slept on you. You say that like it was an inconvenience. It was an indignity. You're surprisingly good at being half asleep in my lap." Something to add to the resume. She smiled, then looked toward the windows where dawn had started to silver the lake. "There's a cafe down by the water," she said. "I saw it on the map last night." I lifted a brow. "You looked at the map? I'm not a child. You told me not to ask where we were going, not to stop being intelligent." I sat up slowly, blanket sliding down around my waist. And here I thought this was a pure romantic getaway. Gabi's eyes drifted over my face, warm and just amused enough to be dangerous. It still can be. Breakfast by the lake felt like cheating. The cafe was small, half wood-paneled and half windows, with a dock out back and two old women at the counter who looked like they had been silently evaluating other people's relationships since the Reagan administration. We sat near the glass with coffee and eggs and sourdough toast, and the kind of quiet around us that only happens outside the city. Gabi looked different in daylight by the water. Less guarded than she had been in New York. Still herself. Still intelligent and measured and sometimes almost too perceptive for my comfort. But lighter somehow. More willing to let the moment arrive without immediately checking what it might cost. That mattered. More than I wanted to say aloud. She caught me watching her over the rim of her mug. "You're doing it again." I'm allowed. On what authority? I drove. That is not how romance works. No. That's logistics. I smiled. "You're very pretty when you're pedantic." Gabi shook her head and looked back out at the water, but the color had already risen faintly into her face. After breakfast, we walked along the lake path in cool morning air, jackets on, hands in our pockets at first. The trail curved close to the shoreline, damp leaves underfoot, the water catching soft gray light between the trees. No one near us. No music. No need to fill anything. For a while we said nothing at all. Then, without warning, Gabi reached for my hand. Not dramatic. Not tentative either. Just simple. Direct. Her fingers sliding into mine as naturally as if they had always belonged there. I looked down, then at her. She kept her eyes forward, almost suspiciously calm. "You can't just do that and expect me to recover quickly," I said. Gabi's mouth curved. "Interesting. I thought that was your department." I tightened my hand around hers. There are moments in a new relationship that feel larger than kissing. That was one of them. Because this wasn't desire alone. It wasn't chemistry or momentum or nighttime softness in a warm room. It was a woman who had once made me work for every inch of certainty, quietly telling me, with no witnesses at all, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere right now. You can stop bracing." And something in me, some long private part one had kept alert for months, finally unclenched. I did not say any of that. I just kept walking beside her, hand in hand, under bare trees near the water, feeling my entire body start to shift from conquest towards something I trusted much less and wanted much more. Building. We spent the afternoon doing ordinary things so beautiful I could have resented them if I'd been alone. We cooked lunch in the lodge kitchen. Which is to say, Gabi cooked lunch, and I attempted to look competent while chopping vegetables in a way she described as alarmingly decorative. "I'm helping. You're arranging ingredients like they need positive reinforcement. I have standards." You have a knife and a superiority complex. That too. She wore faded jeans and a dark green thermal under a denim overshirt, sleeves rolled up. I was in dark denim boots and a cream Henley that had started the day clean and now somehow had flour on one cuff because she had put me in charge of bread and then made the mistake of believing in me. At one point she laughed so hard she had to lean against the counter. You look happy, I said. Gabi looked down, then back at me. I am happy. She said it simply. No armor around it. No irony. It nearly leveled me. Later we sat outside by the fire pit with bowls of soup and thick bread and watched smoke drift into the cold blue of late afternoon. Gabi tucked one leg under herself on the Adirondack chair. I stretched mine out and let the quiet happen. This, I realized, was the point where the weekend had stopped being a gift and become a life-sized answer to a question I had not known I was asking. Could she be happy with me when I wasn't dazzling her? By sunset, I knew. Yes. The evening entered slowly. We opened a better bottle of wine. This time there was no plan to leave the lodge again. No reason to. We settled on the couch near the fireplace with our glasses and the comfortable sprawl of people who had already spent half a day together and liked each other more for it. The fire had burned low enough to turn the whole room softer. Not darker exactly. Softer. The kind of light that blurred the edges of things and made it easier to sit too close to someone without having to explain why. We had changed after dinner into the sort of clothes people only wear when they're no longer trying to impress each other and still somehow become more attractive for it. Gabi looked warmer than she ever had in the city. Less guarded. Less arranged. Entirely herself. That, as it turned out, was becoming a problem of its own. We sat with wine on the couch facing the fire, not touching it first, though that felt more like stubbornness than restraint. Outside, the lake had disappeared into night. Inside, the room held only firelight, glass, the low hum of quiet between two women who had stopped trying to perform ease and finally found the real thing. I looked over at her, meaning only to glance, and didn't stop. Gabi noticed. Of course she did. She always noticed when I was watching her too closely, but now the old tension was gone. No caution entered her face. No instinct to make a joke and turn away. She only held my gaze for a beat longer than usual, then lowered her eyes to her glass, and I felt something small and impossible loosen in my chest. It should not have mattered so much that she was relaxed. It mattered more than almost anything, because I knew what it had cost her to get here. And if I was being honest, I knew what it had cost me too. Not the wanting. I had been able to survive wanting her. Barely, but still. What had worn me down was the uncertainty. That constant private strain of never fully knowing whether each step closer would be the one that sent her back into herself again. Whether I was building something real or simply getting better at not showing how much it would hurt if she slipped away. But here, in the warm quiet of that room, with the fire half lit and Gabi curled into the corner of the couch as if she already belonged there, I felt that old vigilance start to leave me. Not all at once. Just enough to notice the absence. You're doing it again, she said softly. What? Her mouth curved, but only a little. Looking at me like I'm the only thing in the room. I smiled into my glass. That seems accurate. Gabi set her wine down on the low table and turned toward me properly then, one knee folding beneath her on the couch. The movement was unhurried. Easy. There was nothing self-conscious in it. Nothing sharpened for effect. That was what undid me. She was no longer trying to brace herself against me. She was simply here. My body reacted to that faster than my thoughts did. I set my own glass down and leaned back into the couch, more to contain myself than because I was relaxed. Gabi must have seen that too. Her eyes moved over my face slowly, as if she were reading something she had not been allowed to read clearly until now. And then she moved closer. Not enough to make it dramatic. Enough to make it impossible not to feel. I should probably say here that the most destabilizing thing about Gabi was not her beauty. Not exactly. It was the way she could do something very small, shift an inch nearer, rest one arm along the back of the couch behind me, let her knee brush mine, and make it feel larger than all the practiced intensity one had once mistaken for intimacy. Her fingers found the cuff of my sleeve first. Just the edge of it. Then the inside of my wrist. I inhaled too quickly. She noticed that too. A quieter version of her smile appeared then. Not smug. Worse. Knowing. I looked at her. Interesting. She said nothing. Only kept her fingers there, light at first, then firmer, her thumb resting once against the pulse point at my wrist as if she had every intention of feeling exactly what she was doing to me. That should have amused me. Instead, it made something low and warm go through me, so hard I had to look away for a second. When I looked back, she was still watching me. Firelight moved over one side of her face. Her hair had come looser as the evening went on. There was a softness to her mouth that had not been there when we first arrived, and it hit me all at once that I had spent so long wanting Gabi to trust me that I had not fully prepared myself for what would happen once she did. She reached up and touched my face. Not hesitantly. Not testing. Her hand was warm, steady, almost unbearably gentle where it settled against my cheek. And because it was Gabi, because it was this woman, after all the false starts and near misses and nights of trying not to push too hard or care too visibly, that gentleness nearly leveled me more completely than hunger would have. I turned my face slightly into her palm before I could stop myself. Her eyes changed at that. Just a little. Enough. She kissed me first. Slowly. Not like a woman trying to catch up with all the moments she had denied herself. Not like she had something to prove. It was a quiet kiss. Deepening only because neither of us had any real interest in keeping it small. And that was the first moment I understood what was changing. Not the fact that she wanted me. I had known that for a long time. The fact that she was no longer afraid to let me feel how much. My hand slid to her waist. Hers moved from my face to the back of my neck. When I kissed her back more deeply, she did not meld into it the way she might have weeks ago. She answered. Met me. Slowed me when I would have rushed. Took another inch of air and space and control without ever making it feel like a contest. That was the part one hadn't expected. I had brought her here half believing I knew how this weekend would go. Not in detail. Not arrogantly. But still with that old instinctive certainty that I understood the rhythm of things once I set them in motion. Now, with Gabi's mouth on mine and her hand sliding down the open line of my shirt as if she had all the time in the world, I realized the rhythm was no longer mine alone. And more dangerously than that, I liked it. I liked the steadiness of her. The lack of performance. The way she touched me as if she was no longer reacting to me, but choosing me. It was new enough to make me almost lightheaded. When she drew back just enough to look at me, there was no trace of the old uncertainty in her face. She looked warm. Certain. A little flushed. Beautiful in the sort of devastatingly unadorned way no room full of people would ever have deserved to see. I laughed once under my breath, not because anything was funny, but because I suddenly understood how completely I had lost track of my own plans for the evening. Her fingertips slid lower, then back up again, pausing just long enough at my throat to make my pulse feel vulgar. That was when I stopped pretending I was still leading this. Not because she overpowered me. Because she didn't have to. Gabi moved closer, one leg sliding over mine on the couch, and kissed me with a patience that should have been illegal in a room that warm. Every time I tried to deepen it more quickly, she slowed me without words. Every time I thought I understood what she was about to do, she changed the pace by half a breath, half an inch, and made me wait inside the wanting of it. It made me feel younger than I liked, and more exposed than I was used to. And, if I'm being honest, more wanted than I had in a very long time. Not admired. Not desired from a distance. Wanted. By her. When my hand tightened at her waist, she kissed the corner of my mouth and then my jaw, and the quiet confidence of it sent a sharp, helpless pulse through me. I closed my eyes for 1 second too long and felt her notice that too. Of course she noticed. She was taking me apart carefully now. Not cruelly. Not to win. But with the sure, almost tender precision of a woman who had finally realized she could hold all of my attention and had decided not to waste the privilege. That did something to me I was not prepared to describe with dignity. I think I said her name. I'm almost sure I did. What I remember clearly is the feeling of her hand moving over my chest, then lower, then back again, not hurried, just claiming the right to learn me at her own pace, and the way my whole body answered her before I had time to construct a single elegant thought. She kissed me until the room started to feel smaller, until the fire sounded farther away, until the couch was no longer enough. When she drew back, it was only to look at me again, and I swear there was something almost soft in her eyes, something that made the next moment feel less like seduction and more like permission. She stood first and held a hand out to me. Nothing theatrical. No line. No smile sharpened into invitation. Just her hand. I looked at it, then up at her face. And for one impossible second, I felt the full emotional weight of what had changed between us. Not simply that she wanted me, but that she no longer needed me to drag her towards something she secretly feared. She wanted this now. And she was no longer hiding it from either of us. I took her hand. She led me upstairs. Not quickly. Not like a woman stealing something she wasn't sure she could keep. More like a woman who had already decided where this night belonged and was calm enough to bring me there without asking permission from the air around us. By the time we reached the bedroom, I was no longer thinking in clean lines. Only in impressions. The warmth of her hand. The look she kept giving me over her shoulder. The ridiculous, building awareness that I was following without any wish to take back the lead. The room upstairs was dim, the lake beyond the windows black and invisible now. I barely noticed any of it once she turned toward me again. This time when she kissed me, there was nothing left of the city in it. No caution. No old power struggle. No trace of the women who had spent months circling and withholding and measuring the cost of every feeling before letting themselves have it. Only us. And the relief of finally arriving inside that. Clothes became incidental after that. Not gone in a dramatic rush, not scattered in some polished fantasy of perfect urgency, just gradually unnecessary. One piece, then another. My hands on her back. Her mouth at my throat. The bed at the back of my knees before I had fully realized she had guided me there. And even then it didn't feel abrupt. It felt inevitable in the best possible way. She came down with me slowly, still kissing me, and I remember the extraordinary intimacy of that more than anything. The way she never broke the thread of it, the way she made even the movement feel like part of the same long unfolding. No hard cut. No sudden leap from wanting to aftermath. Just one continuous surrender of the distance we had once guarded so fiercely. When she drew back enough for me to see her face, I felt something in me go startlingly still. Because she looked calm. Not detached. Not untouched. Her mouth was flushed, her breathing uneven, her hair falling loose across one side of her face. But underneath all of that there was a steadiness in her that made my pulse feel impossibly loud. I reached for her instinctively. She caught my hand, pressed a kiss to the inside of my wrist, and for one vivid second I could do nothing but look at her. No one should have that effect on a woman who has spent this many years learning to stay composed. And yet, the rest of the night unfolded not in neat stages, but in sensation. Her weight shifting over me and beside me. The sound of my own breath changing when she touched me more slowly than I expected. The way she kept looking at me, not checking, not hesitating, simply staying with me, staying in it, making sure I never had to wonder whether she was about to disappear into herself again. That was what undid me most. Not the hunger. The safety inside it. The fact that I no longer felt like I was trying to hold on to something that might vanish the second I wanted it too much. With Gabi finally, I could stop bracing. And once I did, I think I became far easier for her to unravel than either of us had anticipated. By the time everything softened, the room had gone completely quiet. No fire here. No city. Just darkness, sheets half fallen aside, and the warm, lingering awareness of her against me where she belonged. She lay with her head on my shoulder, one arm across my waist, and I kept one hand at the curve of her back because I liked the shape of her there too much to trust sleep with it yet. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then I let out a small breath that was almost a laugh. Gabi tilted her face slightly against my shoulder. What? I did not expect that. The smile in her voice was unmistakable. No. I felt, rather than saw, the way her mouth curved. Good, she murmured. I turned my head just enough to kiss her temple. That sounds smug. It sounds accurate. That would have annoyed me if I had not been so quietly wrecked. A little later, in the full dark of the room, she traced one slow line over my ribs and said, very softly, I think I needed today. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know what to say. Because I did. And because it mattered enough not to rush. When I finally spoke, my voice had gone quieter than usual. The lake. The whole day. She shifted closer. Breakfast. The walk. You falling asleep on me downstairs. Making lunch with you and realizing you really are a person when nobody's watching. A pause. I think I needed to see that you weren't just trying to impress me. You were taking care of me. That landed deeper than she probably knew. I looked up into the dark for a second and let myself feel it fully. Then I turned my face toward hers, found her mouth without hurry, and kissed her once. Yeah, I said softly when I pulled back. I was. She didn't answer with words. She only moved closer, as if that was explanation enough. And somehow in the dark, with her breathing evening out against me and her hands still resting over my waist, I understood something I should have learned a long time ago. Being chosen after being fully seen is its own form of seduction. Sunday was all softness. We slept late, ordered coffee up from the main lodge and drank it in bed with the curtains half open and the lake beyond the glass silver under morning cloud. At some point Gabi stole my t-shirt and wore it downstairs with jeans and bare feet, and I stood in the doorway watching her move around the kitchen and thought, not for the first time, that peace might actually be more dangerous than longing. We took one last walk by the water before leaving. No dramatic conversation. No big declarations. No emotional cleanup because nothing between us felt untidy anymore. She reached for my hand again at the dock. This time I did not look surprised. I just held on. The drive back to the city felt different from the drive out. Quieter, yes, but not with the caution of two women still learning each other. More like the comfortable hush of something already building beneath the talking. Gabi dozed for part of it with her head tipped toward the window and one hand resting open on the console between us. At some point, without looking, I placed my hand over hers. She turned hers over and laced her fingers through mine without waking all the way. It may have been the most romantic thing that happened all weekend. When the skyline finally returned, gray and familiar and a little too sharp after all that water and wooden firelight, Gabi looked over at me and smiled. What? I kept my eyes on the road. You're going to make the city unbearable now. That seems dramatic. It seems inevitable. She laughed softly and squeezed my hand. By the time I pulled up outside her building, twilight had settled in again, pale and blue across the glass of downtown. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat there for a second longer than I needed to. Gabi unbuckled slowly and looked at me. That was a good idea, she said. Obviously. No, her expression softened. I mean it, Taylor. I looked at her then. Properly. No games left in me. No need for them either. Come back tomorrow, I said. It wasn't a test. It wasn't a line. It was what I wanted. She leaned across the center console, kissed me once, and said, I was already planning to. Then she got out, took her bag, and walked toward the building with the kind of easy certainty that would have been impossible only weeks earlier. I watched her go. Not because I was afraid she'd disappear. Because I liked knowing she'd come back. And if you want the full Taylor and Gabi story, you'll find every part waiting for you in the playlist. If you stayed with me through this weekend, like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what mattered most to you. The road there, the hand at the lake, or the moment Gabi quietly took the whole weekend out of Taylor's hands. And if you've been enjoying these stories, you can now support the channel through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description. Her After Midnight is a one-person channel, and every bit of support helps me keep creating more stories, more characters, and more of these late-night worlds. And tell me where you listen from. I always want to know.